Welcome to Global Morning.
Death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure. If you don't say we have some more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASU strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a life. The president never gave me any deadline.
You're welcome, and it's Global Morning on Global Television, and it's great to be here at about this time. It's TGIF. Thank God it's Friday, and it's a time for people to just relax and know that the weekend is just around the corner. Well, it's great to be here, gracing your television set this morning. I am Jumai Manton, but I am not doing it alone. Of course, last week, and of course, you've been seeing him on programs on Global Television. He's now one of us, no other person than Godwin Sunday. How are you doing?
Now I feel like clapping for myself at this point in time, Jumai. So good morning, Jumai.
Good morning. So officially you're on Global Morning.
Yeah, I'm on Global Morning.
Oh, it's great to have you, and it's Friday. When you hear Friday, a lot of people are very excited when it comes to Friday, and you know that it's Saturday, Sunday is a time for you to relax, but we don't get that. And you know, as a media outfit, you know, we have to work back to back. We have to deliver and of course, inform the public on the basic happenings making rounds. Talking about the basic happenings, and we're going to be looking at the uninterrupted basic studies. That's the new development by the federal government, where 6334 has been scrapped. So it's going to be from that. It's a basic program, right? A model program from 1 to 12 years. So immediately after that, then you're qualified to be in the higher institution. But looking at that, Godwin, how well do you think that is going to play out? We as Nigerians, and we know how our system is, it's, you know, it fluctuates sometimes. It's not, there's this flexibility that happens for people that don't want to run that course. Or do you think we have that? Are we ready for such now? We're now acting like individuals who are abroad, that, you know, of course, abroad, that's how it's run. From 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you see yourself in elementary school, and then all of that in college, and then of course. But here in Nigeria, we're going to start that. I don't know, really.
Well, let me take a conversation from the point where you said, thank God it's Friday, and for us as journalists, of course, there's no leave for the cabinet transfers.
Of course.
We don't go on leave like that.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
But then to delve into the conversation, even that of this educational model that has been introduced, I think uninterrupted educational model that has been introduced. The challenge with it so far, for me, it's a very good model because it has been practiced and over time in other clients. A lot of people have been able to say, hey, this is a good development, especially people that have traveled outside the shores of Nigeria. Of course, it's a welcome development. But the challenge is now going to be like that of the national anthem, that initially when it was changed, it took some of us a while to be able to
Took us back.
to be able to sing along.
Yeah, but now
we just have to mumble through and allow the sound to get into you. From there, begin to get flowing with the words. So we'll get over this also. But then, looking at also the structures being put in place, one should have been thinking right now that instead of coming out with a 12-year program, uninterrupted model, we should have come up with more of an agrobus system. Okay, an agrobus system will now be like a system where each class that you aid in the secondary education or in secondary school from 6334, which is a 334, that's the 334 junior secondary, and it's 3 for senior secondary. For each 3 years in the junior secondary, one would have thought that the government would be thinking along the line of ensuring that each year in those classes you become an entrepreneur from GS1, which we were not privileged to get during our time. So
yes, exactly.
Imagine you are in GS1 and you are already acquiring skills that will prepare you for the future.
Really?
Yeah, so I was thinking that if we're going to come up with a model that will sync with what we do in Africa,
Exactly.
what we represent, so we have this indigenous touch to educational model. It's like when you get to China, for example, you don't get to see the Chinese trying to practice what is not indigenous to them.
Exactly.
So we trying to imbibe other Western educational model. It's fantastic. Going 12 years straight uninterrupted. The policies and the whole brain behind the thoughts, it's fantastic. But then I'm wondering, I'm looking at it from the perspective of how indigenous is our current educational system. How indigenous is this particular model that has been introduced? How many stakeholders were consulted before this decisions was reached? So looking at it also from other angles, one begin to ask salient questions like, if at all they is proposing this particular, you're scrubbing the 6334 system, which has been introduced over time, and it has sunk with some of us, we can resonate with it. But then again, how effective has the 6334 been able to deliver an impact value on Nigerians? And what is that timeline that we're placing right now for this particular uninterrupted model for Nigerians to also look at it and monitor it and see, okay, this is what we intend to achieve with our children? Because most of us might not go back to, will not be able to go back into the 12-year uninterrupted model, but our children will.
Definitely.
And our children will. So we're talking about posterity and legacy.
Exactly.
Those coming behind us. So it's going to be a very long conversation.
A very long one.
Yeah.
And you know, I think we forget something in Nigeria, that most of these countries that practice this system, the 12 years uninterrupted, they're advanced. Most Nigerians will rather allow their kids school abroad than here. So we practicing that this particular uninterrupted basic system. I think it's going to take a while to sink in, because we're not done with the fact that, of course, we know secondary school where you have to be 18 years before you go into the higher institution. We're not done with that conversation yet, and then we're going into this. So what happens when, because we're not done, remember that conversation that you have to be 18 before you can go into the higher institution.
That's the, if your hand can never touch your ears at first.
But you know the conversation that came on, that even if your child finishes secondary school at the age of 15, the child has to wait 3 years at home before he goes into the higher institution. We're not done with that conversation yet, and then we're delving into this one. So what happens when the child is not up to, are we still, is that scrapped? Are we still looking at that? Are we still on that? And then we're going into this. But I like the fact that you mentioned skill acquisition. You know, we're in TED Fund the other day, and they mentioned something about, you know, so that's in the higher institution, inculcating that, you know, when it comes to you being in higher institution and learning that. I like the fact you mentioned that throughout that 12 years in that system, they should be skilled, especially in the junior secondary school. At least they know that, okay, there's a particular skill I can do because of the country in which I am in. I can learn one or two. I can, you know, get acquainted with other skill acquisition. I can learn other things outside the four walls of the classroom. I like that. But I think that's a conversation we're really going to look into. And I don't think this conversation is going anywhere pretty soon, because we're going to go back and forth in this. Most individuals might wonder, I hope we'll be able to sustain this if it comes into play. I hope we'll be able to understand that this is something serious, you know. Well, is it an automatic promotion? You know how it is when you're in the one we know, primary 1, primary 2, primary 3, there's a promotion. If you're not well, if you didn't perform well, all of these things we have to look into. All right, now, like we mentioned, it's Global Morning on Global Television. Let's go on a very quick break. The program continues shortly. Stay tuned.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily. while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Welcome back, and this is still Global Morning. And well, we will looking at a lot of issues this morning, but then before we get into the newspaper review and also bring you up to speed on what's going on various dailies across the country, let's even look at this issue again, Jumai, about the issues around them where the ICPC have come out to say that a particular project in the country has been paid for 5 times for nothing to show. Now, the ICPC is quite interested. The chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Commission, Dr. Musa Aliyu, came out yesterday, I think, to say that a particular project has been given 100% payment, and government officials have received 5 times. They made that 5 times with nothing to show for that hospital project. Now, this also is worrisome across the country, to say that we have a lot of primary healthcare system. I did a particular research on primary healthcare systems across the country, and you'll be wowed with the kind of decadence that we have in our primary healthcare systems across the country. Now, those of us that are in Abuja might appreciate some of the basics that we have here in the Federal Capital Territory. But when you begin to travel to interior communities, far east, begin to go to all the part of the country, you begin to see the primary health care, and when you probe deeper, you now begin to realize that quite a number of funds have been earmarked for this particular project, for drugs, for facilities, for improvement of this healthcare system, like what the ICPC chairman have come out to say. Now, it is just funny. So one would begin to wonder at this point in time that the ICPC seems on the surface, it seems to appear on the surface for me. Right now, we have 3 tiers of government. We have the federal, the state, and the local government. Now, the corruption and the probing of corruption, individual and corrupt officials, tends to be more active from the top. We don't get to hear local government chairmen that embezzle public funds, them being sanctioned and being penalized. We don't get to hear those conversations also around the state level. It's like a faded conversation on state level that we now see it resurface at the federal level. We have a lot of questions to ask the ICPC right now. If you've saying that we find a particular hospital has been given funds have been given approved for it 5 times, what is the name of the hospital? Who has collected that fund? Who is the official responsible for that particular act? Why are we not coming out with all of this disclosure even to the media? Now this calls for real concern, Jumai.
It does. And how did we get to this conversation? You ask yourself. You said 5 times. The second time it happened, you didn't say anything. The 3rd time, the 4th time, and now the 5th time you're coming out to tell us. So we have, let's raise our brows when it comes to the ICPC. But you know, if this is true, of course, this is where we find ourselves in the country. A lot of projects, a lot of funds have been given for various projects. Like when you go to these places, you see it's porous. Some of these health centers are porous, nothing to write home about. But yet you see one or two functions happening there. But it's just unfortunate that this is what it is. And of course, you know the kind of system in which we have. It's going to take a while for corruption to say goodbye to us as a country. But well, the eyebrows has to be raised, and we're going to actually see if ICPC can set the bar and know that, okay, fine, we're going to come out with the quote and unquote the individuals who have collected these monies 5 times, and why are they coming out now to say it? Unfortunately, this is what it is, Godwin.
Well, I also want to even talk about the ICPC Act and that of the EFCC Act. I think that perhaps both acts should be fused together, because a critical study on both acts also gave the EFCC rights to forfeiture, but the ICPC does not have that right to forfeiture. So we need to look at how to, since both are anti-corruption agencies,
of course,
we should begin to look at how we can tie the knots from the loose end. But of late also, I've not been hearing much of ICPC in its fight against corruption in the country.
True.
You see, EFCC is a bit loud this period because of the fact that we have some of the internet fraudsters that have been arraigned by EFCC.
They're doing a fantastic job, by the way.
Yeah, they're doing a fantastic job. We hope to also get ICPC to do parade of suspects. Let's see some of the high-profile cases that they are chasing. I know if ICPC want to do their job, they do it effectively and efficiently. But lately, they've been silent a bit. We hope that the ICPC will be able to come out and also not just state that we have a project, let's get the names, so that Nigerians can know where to point the torchlight to. We can begin to know where to channel our grievances to. And
very true.
Don't give us speculations.
Don't give us speculations.
Tell us who these people are. Of course, they are not ghosts. Tell us their names.
They're human beings.
Where are they located? Even if though you're trying to still be secretive about
or diplomatic. I like that part, because that's what we do in Nigeria. Always diplomatic when we're actually coming out with a particular hold on issues. We tend to be diplomatic because we don't want to tilt to offending the organizations or the individuals, and at the same time we do not want to let Nigerians down who ears are all open to see who are these corrupt individuals, when are we bringing them to book, where would they be arraigned, what are the evidences or surrounding these particular speculations and all of that. So we don't want to tilt, so we're just in the middle. And that's why, if you notice, some of these organizations are very diplomatic, unlike some who come all out and tell you, well, this is it and all of that. But most of the time we hear things like this, even when these individuals are brought to book, it's swept under the rug, Godwin. We hear it, it's like a noise, like a drum. You make that noise with the drum a little, and the next thing you know, it just dies down. And we do not hear about these cases anymore. We do not know what happens with the funds that are the allegation of funds and all of that. So sometimes most Nigerians, maybe I'm speaking on my own, it's just Jumai Manson now, we get tired of hearing things that, okay, fine, there's going to be a particular embezzlement has happened, this person is owing this amount or whatever, or this organization. You know how it is, how it's always played out. And the next thing you see, it is swept under the rug. Or we hear maybe a snake or a monkey or something has swallowed it up. Or so we hear stories. Like I don't know if you're tired of it, but this is what it is. And this is where we find ourselves as a country. I think when we actually try, I always say nip it in the bud, because it's very important. We have to get to the root of this in order for us to move forward. Really, Godwin, if we keep dilly-dallying, or we're not stable when we come to, making claims and we're sure of the evidence and all of that, I don't think we'll move forward. But if we try as much as possible to stand firm and say, hey, this organization or this person has done this and that, and we take it to the end and make it like an example for others to see and like follow. Well, we will say, people have different opinions. We will say, you think there's no law in this country till it catches up with you.
Yeah, most definitely.
But sometimes, even when it catches up with you, it's still swept under the rug, and we still hold on and we still wait. It's just, well, for me, it's just unfortunate, but be hopeful. We know that everything is going to be fine, like I always say.
So this is a call to action to Dr. Ali Musa, the ICPC.
Yes, it's a call to action.
Let's get the names of those people. Let's get the name of the hospital, and let's be able to also do our own findings.
Very important.
The names. of course, a case of this magnitude shouldn't be swept under the carpet.
No, we should not at all.
So that Juma will not come and say that most cases are swept under the carpet.
Because it's true. You might beg to differ, but it's true. But this is, when you say primary health care center, it's very important that you know the kind of individuals that go into this health. You see, that's the thing. We need to be empathetic because these individuals are practically unprivileged individuals that go into these primary healthcare centers. Have you ever been to one? You said you have.
Yeah.
You know how crowded and clustered it is when they tell you it's a day for antenatal, it's a day for this. Do you know how?
You even get to see the doctor.
Do you know how you have? You have to go as early as sometimes 5 a.m. You see women with their newborns. You see immunization period. That is the worst part. You have to. It's very sad.
You might need to get to primary health care center during labor, when women are in labor.
Are you telling me? I've covered the story. You know how it is. You see how frustrated these individuals are with their babies, crying from morning till. It's just unfortunate. It's really, really sad. I always say when you're in a position, please always put individuals in whom you represent in heart. They're going through a lot. Like you mentioned, labor. Labor is the worst because we are the doctors. Our doctors have jackpot. And now, compared to what we have now, it's just unfortunate, really.
But interestingly, most doctors even want to deliver, but
they are not enough hands. They do, of course.
We have qualified doctors even at the local primary health care centers.
Yes, we do.
That want to deliver, no equipment.
Exactly.
No modern facilities.
They'll tell you, in fact,
short of medical equipment, and when you get to the medical primary health care center, that's why my concern on this issue is that at this point in time, we're talking about human lives. 5 times payment for a hospital that has nothing to show.
And it's still
this is particular to me because human lives are involved.
Exactly.
Imagine that 5 times would have done.
Would have gotten a lot of facilities. Exactly.
This community is just being, or this individual is just being unnecessarily unfair to Nigerians. This person is just being, or this individual organization is just being. Let's not use the derogatory word at this point.
No, we shouldn't.
On this organization, but we're saying at this point, give us names. Let us know who these individuals are, and please press charges so that we'll be able to know that Nigerians can hold them responsible and say, hey, how could you have done this? Let's try out some of our laws and test them in the court of law and see the outcome.
Exactly. And it's very important that the law must take its course. Let justice be served. Because for me, ICPC, why would you wait this long? This is 5 times we're talking about. 2 times we can just slap you on the wrist, go, but the 3rd, 4th, 5th time, that is really, really sad. Lives, when it has to do with lives matter. But unfortunately, this is what it is, and this is where we find ourselves. But we're done with this discussion, and then we'll move into the newspaper review. Stay tuned. Do not go anywhere. You're welcome back. And if you're just tuning in, why are you just tuning in? Well, it's fine. You've not missed so much. It's still Global Morning on Global Television. And this is the newspaper review, and we're going to be starting with the Blueprint paper. And above the nameplate of the Blueprint, it states, decomposing Anambra lawmaker Azuka's body found near Second Niger Bridge. And that's one of the stories there. And the Star story says, reps propose Lagoon, New Kaduna, Ekiti, Warri, 27 other new states. And it says, ex-NYSC DG Brigadier General Siga, 11 others abducted in Kastina. And still on the Blueprint newspaper, and you can get that news on page 10 of the Blueprint. And here it says, on business news, tolling enhanced Nigerians road infrastructure, BPE boss, and you can find that read on page 19. On the right-hand side of the Blueprint says, Taiwo inducted into Meshle's Hall of Fame. And you can find that read on page 32. The evolution of Zauzau Emirates, NNPC Limited, first ENP GV achieves 96% reduction in gas flaring. And still on the Blueprint newspaper, it says Boko Haram, 7,790 Nigerian refugees in Chad return 10 years after. And you can find that read on page 14 of the Blueprint newspaper. You have to go out and get yourself a copy in order for you to be well advanced with the news making round. For me, on the Blueprint newspaper, the one that caught my eye is Boko Haram, 7,790 Nigerian refugees in Chad returned 10 years after. The stabilization, the instability in their lives when it comes to family, they've lost loved ones and all that. Is it safe enough for them to return, being in Chad and all of that? Have we gotten to that point, Godwin?
Well, for me, I would say that even them returning at this point in time, should have allowed them stay in Chad, and probably Nigerian government should be taking care of them even in Chad. Exactly. Because where had most of them returning to are their houses that have been put in place in terms of infrastructure. In terms of the security, has there been an improvement in the security architecture, even in where they were living before and chased out? Exactly. Source of livelihood. So how are they going to start? If I even get to source of livelihood, look at the educational system in itself. Have there been systems put together to guarantee that the children, because in 10 years they must have improved in number, increased in number. Of course, they've increased in number. So returning them back to the country, we can just likely say they're just 10,000 men, but we've not added women and children. So it's something to deal with right now. But so the federal government should look at it also, how to reintegrate them back into the society, do more of psychological programs for them to help them heal adequately. So because of the mental trauma most of them must have gone through, they definitely must have lost someone, they might have interacted with people, and so all of those conversations the federal government should try to look at it so that we can have a balanced society. Very important, a balanced society. And the next paper is the Nigerian Tribune, and of course Godwin will be taking us through that. So on the Nigerian Tribune, Tinubu sacks University of Abuja VC barely 5 weeks in office. Acting UNN VC also removed in varsity leadership overhaul. You can find that story in page 5 of Tribune newspaper. Also, federal government proposes 12-year basic education model. I think we've had that conversation here. But we have. You can find that conversation also on page 5 of the Tribune newspaper. 13 patients from US came to Nigeria for kidney transplant, Shetiba. You can find that story on page 12 of Tribune. And also PDP disciplinary committee summons Anyanwu Otom orders over petitions. You can find that story on page 5 of the Tribune paper. Now on Edo gubernatorial, INEC closes case without calling witnesses. Now you can find that story on page 12 of Tribune. Lakurawa terror group Senate orders fact-finding visits to Zamfara, Sokoto, and Kebbi. You can find that story also on page 5 of the Tribune paper. Now, the big story here is Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, TUC, warns over proposed hike in electricity tariff. That's the big story on the Tribune. You can find the story on page 2 and page 6 of the Tribune paper. And also, MPA reviews ports tariff by 15%. You can find that story also on page 7. And also, Osun State, where Adeleke engages 10,000 youths for Imole Youth Corp. And that's interesting. You can find that on page 1 of that paper. Also, Kogi Assembly bans foreigners direct access to cashew nut farmers. So you can find that story on page 4. And also you can find the story on, as African leaders, we must abandon foreign dependency. That's Tinubu's poor leadership. And also you can find that on page 2 of the paper. Also the last on that list is Constitution Review. Reps receive requests for creation of 31 states. You can find that story also. I think all national dailies are putting up with that particular story.
Yes,
but what's the story for me here is that 13 patients from US came to Nigeria for kidney transplant. And that's by Shatima, the vice president of Nigeria. That's something to go home with.
That is something to be worried about.
No, they came to Nigeria. 13 patients from US came to Nigeria for kidney transplant. That is, we're improving in our
we are improving.
So it's a plus for Nigeria. Right now, it is reducing the cost of medical tourism, because prior to this time, we have a lot of Nigerians traveling abroad to go for medical treatment, and it has also this has helped countries like India.
Yes, it has.
Most of those countries to improve on their medical tourism.
You know, my mind went to another direction because I was looking at what the point I was looking at was they're coming here. Okay, is there kidney trafficking that is going on that they are coming rushing? Because Nigeria, we have to be careful when we're dealing with Nigeria. But like Godwin just mentioned, it's a good thing. That means we're improving when it comes to things. But our doctors, they've jackpot, so I don't. This is a lot for me to handle right now. But when we talk about
so you can go out there and get all of the stories more on Nigerian Tribune newspaper.
Please ignore. But really, what caught my eye here really is Kogi Assembly bans foreigners direct access to cashew nut farms.
Yeah.
You know, my mind went to Donald Trump. You know what's happening with the immigration and all of that. So Nigerians, okay, what are we up to? You know, it's for them, for foreigners to also understand that we also have a process. You know, you can't just go into the farms the way you want, and you have to have that particular process in doing things, but you have to go out, and this is a very interesting read for me. So please go out and get yourself a copy to be well informed on what's going on when it comes to Kogi State Assembly and foreigners and the issue, and of course the kidney transplant. So if you're thinking like me, or
I'm not worried. This is not a replication of Donald Trump's policy.
No, I know.
On Kogi State.
I know. But you cannot talk about what is going on. It has never happened before.
I can see the surprise on your face talking about the kidney transplant. You're still surprised. No,
not that. I'm not surprised. I know that. I always say we should be hopeful when it being Nigerians that things will get better. So I hope this is one of the hope we're bringing into Nigeria, that foreigners can actually come and have their kidney transplant, and it's not the other way around, or because we know that a lot of Nigerians, due to hardship, can give one of their kidneys, even if it's detriment to their lives, just to feed their families and put on a light note. On that note, so for foreigners to actually trip in so much, because I know when you go abroad, when it comes to kidney it's a process. You have to be on the line. There is a queue for all of that. So for foreigners to actually trip in here and find it easy access, Do you know what a lot of individuals will do just to put food in their tummy? Some will give their kidney just to feed their families. So that is why I say it's food for. I really need to read and understand that story very well and know where this is coming from. But at the same time, if it's something that has to do with growth and it's a process and there's nothing to be afraid of, kudos to Nigeria for foreigners to actually come here and have that assurance that despite all, there is something good can still come out of our beloved country.
Yeah, most definitely. So let's move on to the next paper, which is the Daily Independent. Juwai,
yes.
What do you have there?
All right, the Daily Independent, and the star story on the Daily Independent reads, TUC rejects tolling of highways, electricity tariff hike, and we have two riders there. And it says federal government implementing policies without engagement may mobilize for mass protests over federal government policies. And above the nameplate of the Daily Independent, 65% of inmates are awaiting trial, says NBA president. And PDP crisis, Ikimi-led disciplinary committee summons Otom, Anyanwu, and others. We're still going back and forth with PDP crisis. What's going on there? What's going on?
Well, let me not ask like the Nigerian, the Senate president was asking the minority leader, who is your secretary, your general secretary?
Exactly. so we've done so many things are happening there. And then here, still on the Daily Independent, it says alleged 42.3 billion naira scam. Northern Christians give EFCC 72 hours to arrest El-Rufai, and that we will find on page 29.
Interesting conversation.
A very interesting conversation. Please go out and get yourself a copy to find out why and how that is going to play out. And it says here, Tinubu, okay, 65 years retirement age for clinically skilled health workers. Former NYSC DG General Siga kidnapped in Castilla. And you find that read on page 6 of the Daily Independent. And reps want life imprisonment for fake drug producers and importers. I don't think that's bad, because when you sell fake drugs, it means that you want people to die. It has to do with life. So for fake, because most of our importers, they know that when they travel outside the shores of Nigeria, these drugs are expired, and because they want to make more money in their pockets, they buy those drugs, bring it here, and individuals who, we're not in that profession, we go to all these pharmacies, and that's why you must get your brand in pharmacies that has that license. Just don't get roadside drugs, because it's going to cause more harm than good to your health. You might say, okay, it's cheaper, but is it expired? Do you check the expiry date? Very important. Not just food, not just drugs, but also food. Most of these canned foods and all of that, just to deviate a bit. Most of us, when we go to the market or the supermarket, we do not check. We just buy because it's in the store. But at the same time, this is very important. They should get life imprisonment. I think that is good, because they've killed a lot of people. Have died.
The reps also should agitate for more life imprisonment for other things, because
exactly, not just drugs. Not just drugs, food also, because when you go to stores, I have gone to a store and I've bought expired canned canned food and all of that, and you just wonder what's going on. You put it on the shelf, but there's some that would just sale, come, and because it's going to expire in like a month or in a week time and all of that. There's one particular, I don't want to mention because I'm so upset with them. I don't want to put you on air, but I told the person I bought the stuff for, I'm going to mention you on air. He was like, but please don't mention. I said, I'm going to mention you. And the truth is, please, they should do a lot when it comes to that. The 7 days you give for that particular product to expire, I don't think it's fair. I think you can do more. You can add a little bit of more healthy preservations, because 7 days, and sometimes people buy these particular goods in a box like 4 days, or I don't think it's nice, and I think a lot should be done, or you don't make it at all and do something else, because it's not fair, really. And then still on the Daily Independent is here, says reps receive proposal for creation of 31 new states, and you can find that read there on page 5 of the Daily Independent. And it says basically Deputy Speaker Reps Committee call for Nnamdi Kanu's release, and you can find that read on page 7 of the Daily Independent. And next we have the Daily Trust. Godwin, over to you.
Yeah, the star story here is how Army General was adopted, and it has other riders here. Man, 2 wives, children among victims. I think you've taken that story.
Yes, I have.
Also.
Unfortunate incident there. Yeah. That means we're still dealing with insecurity, and over 10,000 individuals are coming in from Chad to Nigeria. I don't know. That is what. That's why I said it is worrisome. Have we nipped that aspect? Have we gotten to that point that 10,000 people can still come back home, coming back to what they left behind? You know, kidnap, adoption, terrorism. It's just unfortunate that I don't think we've gotten to the point for 10,000 Nigerian refugees. Can they still come back home and continue with what they left? Is there a new face, a new brand to all of this? We're still dealing now. An Army General is just unfortunate in Katsina State. You can imagine.
Of the former DG of the
NYSC. It's really, really sad, really. And I pray that he's fine, and the individuals his wives and the children amongst the victims are safe and sound by the grace of God.
Yeah, we'll say amen to that. So we'll move on to African cannot depend on foreign blueprints for development. That's for President Bola Tinubu was saying that. And also we'll have on that story, Trump doubles down on Gaza Strip acquisition. You can find all of these and more on Daily Trust. Also, you can find that fire destroys 21 food storage facilities in Kano, kills 78 livestock. You can find that read on the Daily Trust. You can also, 38 days after Tinubu sacks UN Abuja VC. I think we've taken that on the blueprint.
Just 38 days.
Just 38 days. Also, we have a PDP Disciplinary Committee summons Anyanwu Otom. You can also find that you can take a read on page 10 of the paper. Then Senate probes Niger leaders' accusation against Nigeria. Also, the last on them so the blue on the Daily Trust this morning is Barau disburses 2.7 billion naira loan for new agric scheme. You can take a look at all of the story at Daily Trust. Go out there and get yourself a copy to be able to acquaint yourself with some of the information that's on that paper. We can't exhaust even this conversation here this morning, but let's move quickly because of time constraint to other papers.
Of course. And next we have The Guardian, and it states below the main plate, it says federal government swipes 6334. We've talked about the education system with 12 to 4 model scrap, JSS and SS3, and we know we spoke a bit about that this morning, about the scrap. And here it says hours after matriculation, Abuja University VC governing council sacked, and you can find that on page 30. And here it says Adesina at 65, Tinubu Sanwo-Olu Abiodun Otedola brand AFDB President's Nigerian's best export, and you can find that read on page 3. Now the star story on The Guardian reads, lawmaker push for 31 new states amid 11.47 trillion naira debt by existing ones, and you can find that on page 6. Fresh inflation concern as NPA raises port charges by 15%, and that's the business news on The Guardian. And it says grim realities in Southeast as gunmen dictate funeral terms. Are you kidding me? And here it says Tinubu Gowon Mohammed chart path to Africa's growth, prosperity. And you can find that read on page 2. And it says manufacturers warn federal government against new electricity tariff. PDP crisis disciplinary committee invites Anyanwu. We've read that story on other papers. Otom as BOT directs NWC to swear in Uday Okoye. And that's all on The Guardian newspaper. Please go out and get yourself a copy and be well informed. And next is The Nation.
All right, The Nation. The star story on The Nation reads 32 proposals for new state before House of Reps panel. And that's an interesting read. You can go out there and get yourself a copy. So also we have federal government evacuates 7,790 refugees from Chad. Now, I think the figures here differs with what we had so far, but then we hope that probably we'll be able to align the figures. But you can go out there on the Nation's paper and you can find that read on page 3 of the Nation's newspaper. Uni Abuja, UNN gets new vice chancellors. You can find that on page, I think this is on All Dailies today, page 28 of the Nation's newspaper. Asset panel report, Obaseki left 682 billion naira debt in Edo, and that's a big story. That's NBA panel reviews conflicting court judgment. You can find that read on page 23, and also you can find the other story on NBA panel reviews conflicting court judgments on page 3 of the Nation's newspaper. Now, like all the newspaper, we have this big read here. PDP disciplinary committee summons Anyanwu and Otom, and that's just for the Nation. You can go out there and get yourself a copy of the Nation. I think down here we have a body of adopted Anambra lawmaker found. You can find that on page 6 of the paper. And lastly, NPA raises tariff on port services by 15%. Now, Juma, this is worrisome. We're talking about the hike in what do you call it? In electricity tariff. We're talking about the hike in telecommunication. Now we're talking about being confronted with another hike in Nigerian Port Authority. Now, if the cost of bringing in goods into the country 15% by 15%, you go to increase by 15%. Now, this really calls for concern.
Yes,
I think the Nigerian Labour Congress and the TUC have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do in this regard. But you can find this and more stories on the Nation's paper. Do well to go out there and get yourself a copy. Juma, the next paper is the Vanguard.
All right, the Vanguard newspaper, and the Star story says uproar as IGP PSC clash over retirement of police officers. And above the nameplate it says Minister pushes for transition from 934 to 12-4 system of education. Reps Constitution Review Panel proposes creation of 31 more states. We read all those stories before, and it says UK citizenship, Bandanosh didn't single out Nigeria, and that's foreign. That's the foreign ministry. You can find that on page 6. And we've read about the decomposing body of the kidnapped Anambra lawmaker found on Second Niger Bridge. Unfortunate incident there. And it says programs stoppage, job losses through USAID funds freeze. And you can find that on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. A lot of stories there. You can see Kanu's release being Bring Peace Reps panel, and it says Shafa ignites war in Southwest. Man cautions against further hike electricity tariff. You can find that on page 30. Please go out and get yourself a copy of the Vanguard to be well informed on the news making round. Next is the Standard Times. I think we can take two more.
Because of time constraint, let's just get straight to the point.
Please, the Star story.
There's the Star story and the point.
Exactly.
Ex-National Assembly members group fault 31 new states proposal. That's on the Punch. That's the Star story on the Punch, and you can get that on page 2 of the Punch. You can get that read on page 2 of the Punch. Obiagana GHL file appeal against a favorable High Court ruling, and that's also a very interesting story. Also, but my file writes, you see fresh price hike looms as MPA plans 15% tariff increase. Also, we have here Tinubu Mbeki, Gowon advocates homegrown solutions to African challenges. And you find out also on page 9 of the Punch newspaper. PDP crisis. Ikini's panel receives 30 petitions, summons Anyanwu Otom. You can find that story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Lagos installs speed limit monitors, imposes 50,000 naira fine. You can find that story on the page 6 of the Punch newspaper. Then also you find opposition plans unveiling of mega coalition June. Opposition plans unveiling of mega coalition June. You can find that story on page 12. But the captivating story for me, Juma, even on the Punch this morning, is this Lagos State speed limit monitors. Sometimes I keep wondering if Lagos State is still in Nigeria, because I think that they are always ahead of.
They're taking the state to a whole new level.
I don't understand what the governor is doing in the state. It's taken. We were trying to recover from the blue rail to the red rail line, and then we now moved to purple, and now we're coming to. I understand Lagos is also working on cable cars, as it stands right now.
Yes, very true.
So what's going on, Governor Sanwo-Olu? Pity other state, you're way too ahead.
No.
Lagos should just slow the pace.
No.
Because people, other states are trying to catch up. Particularly neighboring state like
they should learn. They should catch up.
Neighboring state like Ogun State is trying to catch up.
Very true.
They're trying to copy Lagos State back to back. Oyo State also is one state that is doing well for itself.
Very true.
In the West. Now, in the east, we've seen Abia State also trying to outshine Lagos.
Very true.
Anambra is following behind. Don't forget the governor of Enugu State also is still doing magnificently well.
Of course,
yes, he's doing magnificently well in Enugu
Yes,
State.
very true, very true, very true, very true. So let's say states also are trying to catch up, because he's setting a pace. Okay, that pace, and
don't forget that Akwa Ibom State also is also doing well for itself.
Yes, Akwa Ibom State is also doing well. Other states need to learn and see that it's
the
not all
pace
about
at which Lagos is going.
The pace is, well, let's see. Other states will definitely follow. You say you lead and others will follow. So let's say follow and
let's beg Mr. Governor of Lagos State, Governor Babatunde, please
carry everyone along.
Just slow down a bit. Because in the committee of governors this time, no governor might not be able to come shake hands with you. And it's that they just feel like this man is way ahead of us, because right now Lagos is not thinking on the normal now. They're just thinking outside. They're not. There's no box. There's no box for Lagos, because Lagos is already outside the box.
Very true.
As it stands right now.
Very true.
You can go out there and get a copy of the Punch newspaper to stay updated with some of the headlines that we have been able to dish out even this morning, Jamal.
And then we're just going to take the last paper because of our time before we quickly wrap it up. And of course, I'll go with the new Nigerian News Direct. It says TUC manufacturers kick against proposed 65% hike in electricity tariff. I'll just take two stories from there so we can quickly just wrap up with the last paper because of our time, because we have the AM News. And here says appointment saga. Tinubu sacks Uni Abuja VC, shuffles board for UNN, University of Uyo and others. And that's the only headlines I will take on Nigerian News Direct. But to get other headlines, please go out and get yourself a copy. Godwin will just take one more paper and then we can just wrap it up on the newspaper.
All right, so leadership, we're taking Leadership Friday. I'll just take one story. Pipeline rehabilitation faces fresh challenges, and it has also bandits kidnap ex-NYC DG orders in Katsina. But that's all we can take here on Global Morning Headline Reviews, Jumai.
Yes, that is all when it comes to the newspaper review. That's all we can take. Just go out and get yourself a copy, and and then go through some of these headlines making rounds. Up next is the AM News on Global Television. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Jumai Manson. Now, a quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and free to air on NICOMSAT. Now, the news in full. The House of Representatives on Constitution Review has proposed the creation of 31 new states in the country. If the proposals goes through, the Nigerian state will be made up 67 sub-national governments. The proposal for new states was contained in a letter read during plenary session by the Deputy Speaker, Benjamin Kanu, who presided over the session in the absence of the Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas. Bandits have reportedly kidnapped the former Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, Brigadier General Maharzu Siga, retired in Siga Village, Bakori local government area of Katsina State. The bandits also killed one person, abducted at least 9 others, 7 as they were said to have ransacked several homes, catering away with valuables. Katsina State Police Public Relations Officer DSP Abubakar Sadiq to confirm the attack. The Senate has approved President Bola Tinubu's request to terminate the appointments of 3 independent National Electoral Commission INEC resident electoral commissioners, RECs, in charge of Sokoto, Abia, and Adamawa State. The affected officials are Dr. Nura Ali, Sokoto State, Barrister Hudu Yunusa Ari, Adamawa State, Professor Ikeme Funa Chigu Dze Uzochukwu, Abia State. The decision followed the Senate's consideration of a motion sponsored by Senate Leader Okpeyemi Bamidele during Wednesday's plenary session. President Bola Tinubu has condoled with parents, guardians, and families who lost their loved ones in a fire incident that engulfed an Islamic school in Kaura, Namada, Zamfara State. Tinubu conveyed his condolences in a statement signed by his Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, titled President Tinubu mourns Zamfara Islamic School pupils, says safety should be uppermost to priorities. President Tinubu commensurates with the state government and owners of the school and prays for the quick recovery of those receiving medical attention. The fight against female genital mutilation took center stage in Owerri, Imo State capital, as a wife of the governor, Barrister Chioma Uzodinma, in partnership with UNICEF, marked the International Day of Zero Tolerance for FGM. This year's theme, Step Up the Pace, Straightening Alliances and Building Movements to End FGM, underscores the need for collective efforts in eradicating the practice. Our correspondent, Amarachi Ibe, was there with the report. That report will be brought in our subsequent bulletin. President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed his administration's commitment to strengthen Nigerian security architecture, assuring that he has prioritized national security as a fundamental aspect of his governance. He stated this at the Chief of Defense Staff Joint Task Force Commanders Conference in Abuja. Tinubu, represented by the Minister of Defense, Mohammed Badaru, lauded the military and security agencies for their ruthlessness efforts in combating security threats across the country. Over now to Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum has led a high-profile Nigerian delegation to initiate the repatriation of refugees who fled the Boko Haram insurgencies to Baga, Sola, Chad Republic. The delegation, which included the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Dr. Yusuf Saninu, and the Federal Commissioner and Chief Executive Officer of the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons, were received in Baga, Sola, on Wednesday by the governor of Las Province, Sela Tajani. Reports that the displaced persons, mostly Borno indigents, have spent nearly 10 years away from their homeland due to the insurgency they affected communities around the Lake Chad Basin. The first phase of the repatriation exercise, 1,768 families comprising 7,790 people, will return to Nigeria. The Edo State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal has adjourned proceedings to Monday, February 10th for the Edo State Governor, Monday Okpebholo, to open his case. This development followed the failure of the Independent National Electoral Commission, which was scheduled to present its witness starting February 6th to do so. INEC's lead counsel, Kanu Babi San, informed the three-member panel led by Justice Wilfred Okpochi that they would not be representing any witnesses after giving its thoughts at the end of Wednesday's proceedings. The United Nations World Food Programme says it has budgeted $2.5 billion in the 2023 to 2027 Nigerian country's statutory plans geared towards achieving zero hunger and improved nutrition across the country. The head of the program, WFP, Serian Loom, said this at the co-creation workshop organized by the organization in collaboration with the Nigerian Social Investment Program Agency on Wednesday in Abuja. Loom, who represented the program's country director, said the World Food Programme's strategic goal is to ensure a world without hunger in line with the Sustainable Development Goals 1 and 2 on poverty and zero hunger. The Lagos State government hosted members of Food and Beverages Recyclers Alliance on courtesy visit to discuss the modalities for the enforcement of the ban on single-use plastics, emphasizing that full enforcement will commence very soon. Speaking at the meeting held in the conference room of the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources, Commissioner Tokunbo Wahab reiterated the government's commitment to the SUP ban, describing it as strategic and intentional. Wahab stated that the discussions are also covered extended producers' responsibilities and ongoing efforts by Food and Beverages Recyclers Alliance to collaborate with the government. Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Barau Jibrin, has launched the Barau Initiative for Agricultural Renovation in the Northwest to empower 558 young farmers across 186 local government areas in Kano, Kaduna, Katsina, Kebbi, Jigawa, Sokoto, and Zamfara. Sharon J. has details.
Assembly, Senator Barau, represented by the Special Advisor, Policy and Monitoring, Professor Bashir Mohammed, says each beneficiary will receive a 5 million naira interest-free loan, totaling 2.79 billion naira to boost agricultural production, particularly maize and rice. FEG says the initiative that aligns with the Renewed Hope agenda aims to restore the region's status as Nigerians' food baskets will be launched in April 2025 in partnership with a national financial institution.
We thank God that so far so good. Various interventions by the government has lowered the incidence of banditry and insecurity, especially in the Northwest Region. But the program is extensively collaborating with all the relevant security agencies, along with the states and local government councils, including the traditional institutions, to ensure the security of all the participants that are going to partake in the program. To this end, I hereby solicit your support for the success of this project. If we attain food security in our country, more than half of our problem will be solved. So let's do it together for the benefit of all.
He says the initiative is being implemented in collaboration with security agencies and traditional rulers to ensure the safety of farmers across the region.
The broad initiative for agricultural revolution in the Northwest aims to use the vast arable land in the geopolitical zone to restore agricultural prominence and to achieve food security. 3 young men, 3 young farmers will be selected from each of the 186 local government areas of the 7 states that comprise the Northwest geopolitical zone: Kano, Kaduna, Katsina, Kebbi, Jigawa, Sokoto, and Zamfara. Each selected beneficiary will receive 5 million naira loan to invest in farming during this year's cropping season. the sum of 2,790,2.79 billion will be disbursed to the beneficiaries.
Senator Barrow therefore called on stakeholders to support the project, emphasizing that food security is key to Nigerians' economic stability. Sharon Ajay reporting for Global TV News.
Thank you, Sharon, for that report. The Katsina Command of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has called for a collective effort to address drug abuse in the state. The agency's commander in the state, Mohammed Aminu Abubakar, made the call in Katsina during sensitization and advocacy for women and youth on drug abuse awareness and prevention. Aminu Abubakar expressed the need for the people of the state to contribute their quota in the fight against drug trafficking and abuse. The Niger Delta Development Commission has begun the payment of 50,000 Naira monthly stipends to 10,000 indigenous youth from the Niger Delta under its Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme. The Director of Corporate Affairs at the NDDC, Salidi Thompson Wakama, disclosed this to journalists in Port Harcourt, River State capital. She explained that the beneficiaries will undergo practical hands-on training across the various organizations for 12 months to develop critical skills. Now, in another development, the suspended Edo State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice Samson Osage has denied committing financial infractions. Osage was suspended alongside the chairman of Edo State Local Government Service Commission, Damien Lawani, for alleged official and financial infractions. However, in a statement, Osage denied the allegations against him and expressed readiness to defend himself and prove his innocence. In a bid to address growing concerns of insecurity in Benue State, particularly the recent killings in Otukbo, the National Association of Idoma Security Professionals have called for an urgent Benue Security Summit during a press briefing in Abuja. Queen Agaba now reports.
Benue State has witnessed series of attacks, including killings, robberies, and kidnappings. Armed headsmen are believed to have been responsible for many of these attacks, leaving dozens dead and many more injured. One of the most recent incidents occurred in the Umogidi community of Adoka district in Otukpo local government area, where at least 46 people were killed in a sustained attack by armed headsmen. Following these developments, the National Association of Idoma Security Professionals is calling for a collective action to address the security challenges in Benue State, emphasizing the need for an urgent Benue Security Summit to develop effective strategies to combat insecurity and protect lives and property.
If you look at it, the insecurity in Benue State today has gone beyond the government cycle. And so, like we all know, security is a collective responsibility. And we are all, coming on board to see how we can bring solutions to the issues. Just yesterday, there were killings in Otukpo, and also somewhere in Asa, in Otukpo still, there are still killings. So, we as a concerned professionals from this region, we are calling on the government to see how we can come together with a security summit that is tailored towards the solution of the insecurity in Benue State. Today, we don't have any digitalized security checkpoints in Benue State. If you're traveling outside the checkpoint, the military base in Nasarawa State, there is no military checkpoint that is standardized to meet up with the security solution of the people.
We are aware of the challenge, right? So we are supposed to go for the solution. How do we now go for the solution? One of the solutions is that the security summits that we're talking about, that this association is trying to come up with, because there are certain critical stakeholders in Benue that are not carried along when it has to do with insecurity issues. Civilian population, also security managers. You don't leave the fight against insecurity in the hands of uniformed men alone. So we are trying to see how to bring traditional rulers, religious leaders, and other critical stakeholders.
Conferred with the honor of the Grand Patron, Chief Dr. Mike Okibe Onoja pledged to do more for the people of Idoma Land and Benue State regarding security.
The honor you have done to me is also a responsibility and an incentive to do more for Idoma Land in terms of security.
The association reaffirmed its commitment to support efforts to address the security challenges, promoting peace, security, and development in Benue State. For Global Television, Queen Agaba reporting.
Kwara State Police Command has foiled 2 kidnapping attempts and arrested 4 suspects in the Baratin and Ifelodun local government area of the state. In a statement, the command spokesperson Adetun Ejere Adeyemi said the arrest followed intelligence-driven operations by the Anti-Kidnapping Squad and the state's Criminal Investigation Department. According to the statement, 2 suspects, Tukur Mohammed and Yahya Abdullahi, were arrested in Baratin for an attempting to extort 4 million naira from a residence of Abuja Fulani Camp, Ilesha Baruba, after initially demanding 20 million naira. You are watching the live broadcast of AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. When AM News returns, CBN restricts BDCs to $25,000 FX weekly, one dealer bank. We shall bring you those details as well as business and sports stories right after the break. Please stay with us. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is AM News on Global Television. Thank you for staying with us. In business now, Benue State government says it is demonstrating its commitment to the implementation of the natural gas expansion project to ensure access to alternative source of energy and boost the state's economy. Correspondent Felicity Inderi reports that Governor Hyacinth Alia re-emphasized his commitment when he received the chairman of the program, Professor Mohammed Ibrahim, at the Government House in Makurdi.
The program chairman, Professor Mohammed Ibrahim, while presenting the report to the governor, explained that their findings are based on the field assessment of the availability of coal as a mineral resource for the production of natural gas. Professor Ibrahim further noted that the committee also took awareness of production of auto gas utilization, exploring the possibility of liquefied natural gas, clinical environmental assessment power generation, which the committee estimates at 5 to 20 megawatts.
Benue is going to pioneer in the country the production of gas, not from the conventional hydrocarbon, but from the non-conventional coal. Just so that the nation will have an alternative, to gas availability.
The state government had inaugurated a state committee for the implementation of the natural gas expansion program to liaise with the national committee in enhancing resources for economic industrialization.
We are very eager as a committee, and the governor has transformed our committee now into an implementation committee.
Governor Hyacinth Alia, who thanked the committee for their diligence in coming up with the report, said the project is of immense benefit in aspects such as economic diversification, employment generation, energy security, and investment opportunities. The governor noted that the state government has reached an agreement with the Akaweto Kula Polytechnic Makurdi for the training of people who will be involved in driving the project in the state.
You are the very actors to help us, comb through the nitty-gritties of all this transaction. Again, you heard me say I want the full implementation of it.
Governor Alia also received a proposal from an investor for the implementation of the natural gas expansion program in the state. In Makurdi, Felicity Indere reporting.
The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission has urged the Federal High Court in Abuja to allow it to join the 100 billion naira lawsuit filed by Dangote Petroleum Refinery, seeking to stop the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and oil marketers from importing refined petroleum products into the country. However, Dangote Refinery opposed the Commission's application to join the suit, describing the Commission as a middle-sum interloper that has no business in a case evolving around Petroleum Industry Act, an act of the National Assembly. The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission said it needed to be allowed to join the suit as a defendant in order to oppose Dangote Refinery's suit. In a bid to improve the lives of Nigerians, the federal government says it has expanded its palliative program to support students across the country and residents of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, building on the success of its previous distribution in Imo State. In a statement from the Finance Ministry signed by the Director of Information and Public Relations, Mohammed Manga, noted that the Minister of State for Finance, Doris Uzoka Anete, while distributing the palliatives over the weekend, emphasized that the gesture will address immediate needs and form part of the broader economic reform agenda of President Bola Tinubu's administration. Uzoka Anete noted that these palliatives serves as a bridge while the comprehensive economic reforms take root. Residents of the Federal Capital Territory have been left stranded and struggling with fuel shortages following the sudden closure of several retail outlets owned by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited within the capital city. It was gathered that the stations closed for some days were allegedly ordered by the management of the national oil firm and will continue till next week. The closures, attributed to logistical challenges, have led to long queues at remaining stations, with many motorists and commuters facing hours of delay. And now to the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has released new guidelines which permits bureau de change BDC operators to purchase up to $25,000 weekly from authorized dealer banks, ADBs, to meet retail market demand. In a circular signed by Dr. W.J. Kanya, the acting director of the Trade and Exchange Department at the regulatory bank, the Apex Bank also outlined the compliance requirements to ensure transparency and curb potential forex misuse. Under the new regulations, BDCs are expected to source for their loaded forex from a single authorized dealer bank per week, as the restriction is aimed at preventing speculative activities and ensuring better oversight. On the foreign scene now, United States President Donald Trump has signed an executive order to ban transgenders athletes from participating in women's sports. Trump said on Wednesday, before he signed the order at the White House, surrounded by dozens of children and female athletes, that from now on, women's sports will only be for women. With this executive order, the war on women's sports is over. Trump's order allows U.S. government agencies to deny funds to schools that will enable transgender athletes to compete on women's teams. A state of emergency has been declared on the Greek island of Santorini after days of consecutive earthquakes. It comes after magnitude 5.2 tremor was recorded at 21:09 hours local time between the Greek islands and Amargos and Santorini, making it the strongest in recent days. It is estimated to have occurred at a depth of 5 kilometers. The grid will be in effect until 3rd March to address the emergency need and manage the consequences, officials said. Hundreds of Bangladesh protesters have smashed down buildings connected to ousted farmer leaders Sheikh Hasina on Thursday, hours after students with excavators began demolition of a museum to her father. The museum and former home of Hasina's late father, Bangladesh First President Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, had been set on fire last year during the students-led revolution that ended her 15 years of autocratic rule. Protests were triggered in response to reports that 77-year-old Hasina, who has defied an arrest warrant to face trial in Zakat for massacre. In sports, Rangers international coach Fidelis Ikechukwu appears to have accepted the harsh reality of their fading Nigerian Premier Football League (NPFL) title defense, with an 11-point gap separating them from the leaders Remo Stars after 22 games. Despite bouncing back from a 2-game losing streak with a 2-0 win over Ikorodu City on Monday, Ikechukwu remains cautious about their chances. However, Ikechukwu, who had previously expressed confidence in their title chase, now appears less optimistic. As we end the Global TV AM news, let's take a quick look at some of our top stories again. The Lagos State government hosted members of the Food and Beverage Recyclers Alliance on a courtesy visit to discuss the modalities for the enforcement of the ban on single-use plastics, emphasizing that full enforcement will commence very soon. In business, the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) has released new guidelines which permits Bureau de Change (BDC) operators to purchase up to $25,000 weekly from authorized dealer banks (ADBs) to meet retail market demand. On foreign news, a state of emergency has been declared on the Greek island of Samothrace after days of consecutive earthquakes. And finally, in sports, Rangers international coach Fidelis Ikechukwu appears to have accepted the harsh reality of the failing Nigeria Premier Football League (NPF) title defense, with 11-point gap separating them from the leaders Ramo Stars after 22 games. And that's it on Global TV AM News. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365, on Star Times channel 276, and free to air on Nicomsat. And kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen by using @Global TV NG. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you for watching. Good morning.
welcome back to Global Morning here on Global Television. And we'll go straight to a very pressing issue right now, which is the President Bola Tinubu is seeking approval to increase the 2025 budget from 49.7 trillion naira, which he presented to the joint section of the National Assembly on December 18, 2025, to 54.2 trillion naira. Tinubu, according to the request read by the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, on Wednesday in Abuja, explained that the increase arose from 1.4 trillion additional revenue made by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, 1.2 trillion made by the Nigerian Custom, 1.8 million generated by some other government-owned agencies.
The 2025 appropriation bill's total budget size will increase from 49.7 trillion to 54.2 trillion naira, demonstrating our commitment to inclusive growth and security. Of course, the letter had proposed allocation of the additional revenue, all embedded here. And the justifications for the allocations. The solid mineral sector will have about 1 trillion naira. The Bank of Agriculture recapitalization will have about 1.5 trillion. The Bank of Industry recapitalization will have about 500 billion naira. Critical infrastructure will have about 1.5 trillion.
The Senate President also consequently directed the request to the Senate's Committee on Appropriation for expeditious consideration and declared that the budget consideration would be concluded and passed before the end of this month. Before we being joined by our guest on this particular topic, let me bring this conversation back to the studio, to Jumai here, and looking at the increment from what it was about 4.9 trillion naira. Now they have an increment to 54.2 trillion naira. Now this is really disturbing. Now the background of this conversation was that by December last 2 months ago, on 18th of December to be precise, before the Senate went on vacation, the President presented the budget to them. People were asking, wouldn't there be a presentation of 2025 budget? And it came very late, and when we had that budget, it was almost at the second reading when it was presented to the Senate. Of course, it was a welcoming budget. Looking at it for the first time, the Nigerian budget has skyrocketed to about 49 trillion naira. Just on Wednesday, there was a letter written back to the Senate again, increasing the figure from what it was to about 50. Right now, it's about 54.2 trillion naira. And what the President have said so far is that 1.4 trillion of that budget is additional was raised from the Federal Inland Revenue. That is, Federal Inland Revenue have been able to make more money for the government, and also 1.2 trillion has been made by the Nigerian Custom. 1.8 trillion naira has also been generated by the Nigerian government. But what is very interesting about this conversation is that across board, if you look at it critically, we'll see that the Nigerian government have not come out to say that hey, this is what the 2024 budget has been able to achieve so far. Before we talk about the 2025 budget, I think we begin to look at accountability in terms of what we do as a people, as a country. Otherwise, people just begin to pass budget and we don't get to see some form of accountability being put in place, checks and balances. I think that's what the government should be now. If you look at it, to understand the magnitude of this whole figure, that is 1 billion naira. If you look at it, if you spend 1 billion naira daily, it is if you're going to spend about 1 trillion, it's going to be spent like 1,000 days. And if you look at 50 trillion, it's going to be spent about another 50,000 ways. But if you spend 1 million naira a day, it will take you about roughly 3.5 years to be able to finish 1 billion naira. Now,
looking at this now, imagine the magnitude of 50 trillion naira budget in a country with double digits. In a country with double digits inflation, the unemployment rate is something else. Terrible electricity, prevailing insecurity across the country, everywhere. Non-existing health care services,
and you have to talk about education,
possible education, and on tourism, because we're not even looking at the area of tourism. One would have thought that this budget would capture largely the budget as a means of generating revenue for the government. We have a lot of untapped resources in the country that we're not talking about now. Addition of how much, looking at how many trillion have been added to the budget, I think this is really calls for concern. But we know that there are a lot of gray areas that have not even been spoken about by the government. So I don't know. We'll be looking at all of these indices that have brought us to where we are right now. The President Tinubu's administration has promised to cut costs in all ramification, but with this budget about 54 trillion naira, is this the right way? Is this the right call to make at this point in time, knowing that Nigerians are being confronted with a lot of hikes here and there? We just spoke about the Nigerian Port Authority hike, there's electricity hike, and there is a telecommunication hike. And I know that other hike will subsequently follow if they are not even being surreptitiously aligned right now. There's some hikes that are not even being recorded. Example for hiking in mining sector, there's no fixed price to what you're going to mine in the country. A lot of sector also that they have irregular hikes that are going on and nobody's talking about it. There's no general, let's say there's no general uniform pricing system. Regulatory price regulation in the country really calls for concern, and now we're seeing this. Would this be that to finance this budget, Nigerians will have to pay through their feet, just like we already doing? This is my one penny even on this conversation.
It's just unfortunate that sometimes, individuals will say with all of these increments here and there, Nigerians are not put into consideration. We're dealing with another issue of fraud because some outlets, and of course, when you start dealing with issues of fuel, businesses, we're talking about, like you mentioned, education, healthcare, increment in telcos, the company that is out, the company and all of that. A lot of things that you just wonder if Nigerians are really put into consideration with all of these increments and these hikes that are ongoing. But it's just unfortunate. You mentioned something. You said if it's with transparency and all of that in these processes. But at the same time, the 2025 budget, let us see how beneficial it's going to be to us as a Nigeria, as the people of Nigeria, because definitely we have to look at all of those corners when it comes to increments in this sort of way. Are some people going to be excluded? Are some people, is it possible? Or let's see how well this is going to play out, because I feel once there is whatever hardship that is looming around, in one way or another, even if you're high up there, it's going to affect you in one way. There's some things that you're getting at a particular cost that is going to increase in price. I'm talking about the middle class and then, of course, the low class itself. But let's just see how well this increment is going to play out, and let's see if everything if there is a balance. Like they say, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, but at the end of it all, we just have to wait and see and understand that this 2025 budget, of course, with this, what is this proposed increment, what is going to bring to us, what is it going to bring on the table? But with this, it's a lot. A lot of individuals are going through a lot in this country, and when you keep badging them with increments here and there, there is just this anxiety that comes into play. A lot of people find it hard to eat 3 square meals a day, and the government comes in with this sort of increment. The layman doesn't understand when you say, he doesn't understand what 2025 budget is all about. Someone out doesn't even care about that. As long as whatever budget or increment you are putting into place, when I go to the market and if my basic amenities are there, I can afford them at my core. And then when you say that there is a reform or something better is coming my way, when I go to the market and I can afford something that was once 10,000 naira, and I can buy it at the rate of 2,000 naira or 1,500, and I know that the government is doing something. But for some, we don't even understand what it means. We might say that this present administration is working, yes, but at the same time, you keep calling big figures that most people do not even understand. They're not even aware. They don't even know what you're saying. At the same time, you tell us that things are getting better, you are doing a lot of work, but we need to see visibility. It's not about words, we need to see it. So you are bringing increments, and of course there is working in progress, and you're bringing all of these reforms, and we can feel the impact as a people, as an individual. Then we know that whatever increment you are bringing into place is very, very good to us. We understand that the government is working. Or you keep calling big numbers, trillions, and someone will just be wondering, sitting there and say, what are you these people talking about? And people will be thinking about, oh my goodness, I cannot even afford to pay. Do you realize right now as we speak, with all of these increments here and there, how many times are you supposed to go to school in a week? I'm putting you on the spot now, Gordon. How many times in a week?
Give or take 4.
Some now, due to the high cost of transportation. I know a family that goes to school 3 times in a week, sometimes 2 times in a week. So the boy, when he goes to school on Monday, he has to ensure he gets everything that he needs, because Tuesday is not going anywhere because there's no money for transportation. And now, of course, you know what, we are dealing with a lot in this country. A lot of are dealing with a lot, and that's why you have suicidal cases. Like some mothers who just wake up and poison themselves and their children will just die, because if you maybe the other side, it's much more better. But I'm not promoting that. Of course we know it's a sin for you to take your own life. But as much as all of these things are happening, consider the masses. In all of these big numbers that you mentioned, all of these stuff, when it comes into play, like we mentioned, we were talking about this before we came on the program, that there's not even going to be a public opinion, it's just going to come like that in February 10th, you mentioned, right?
Yeah, but it's not before the end of February.
Before the end of February, so no public opinion on this, we're not going to debate on this issue, or what's going on? Like really, we're dealing with a lot. We're not done with the telecommunication tariff hike, we're not done with electricity. Some of us here wrote a wrong band A, band B, band C, and someone will tell you, I don't even know what I am.
Some people are bandits.
Really? Are you kidding me? Maybe you're on your own on that one.
Bandits.
Some would tell you, I don't even understand the band that I am in, because I know I'm just paying, I'm just CBA, I'm just paying. I'm wondering, are you kidding me right now? If I get values what, whatever increment you're bringing, it doesn't matter. As long as I'm getting value what, and I can see it, and if the impact is there positively, oh please go ahead. But once there's increments here and there, frustrating the lives of Nigerians who are already frustrated, that's calling for trouble. But let's just see how well this plays out. I think it's beneficial to each and every one of us in Nigeria.
Even speaking of being beneficial, I just recall, as you're speaking, I recall the Benue State incident where we have the Benue State, what do you call it, the touring line that has been introduced in Kefi Bamaki Highway, and people from Gombe right now that applying that route will have to pay through their nose. People that are going to move their goods, but then the burden of payment is not really a challenge for most motorists, but most commuters right now that they apply that route on a daily basis. So imagine you living in a community like Benue, and you're staying in a community around Kefi, and you need to apply that route every day to go drop your child maybe in Makurdi, or you have to apply that route on a daily basis. Now that's really disturbing. So I think at this point in time we should be able to engage Nigerians before policies are initiated.
You're speaking
engage people, because what I see is a master-servant. It's not really a master-servant relationship, but it is a master-servant relationship.
Yes, it is.
Because when we bring elected representatives into office, we expect them to discharge our mandate, deliver our will. That is why it's called a Leviathan. They're supposed to deliver what we want. The government is supposed to be a machinery and an agency through which the people's will are being implemented.
Simple.
So when we have a scenario right now where people come up with policies and there are no consultation. I've mentioned on this table before now that we need to have more of, I know we need to have public-private partnership. Right now we need more of public-private partnership and participation.
Very important.
Because people don't get to participate. Imagine you coming up with an increment that's going to better a lot of Nigerians. And the average Nigerian, like you rightly said,
doesn't understand.
Doesn't even understand the figure.
What are you talking about? They're just calling trillions, just calling numbers. Really?
Funny, I wish that we can do the same thing we did for the tax reform, that we were able to drive home the information.
Exactly.
People were able to understand the tax reform laws even in their local dialects.
Very important.
So why don't we have the same thing on the budget? I think the National Assembly should begin to look into this, that we won't have a reoccurrence of this particular incident on the 2026 budget, where people don't even understand. Right now it's being sent to appropriation, and when we send to appropriation committee, it means that the budget has entered into committee stage.
Exactly.
That's the first stage.
Yes, it has.
The second reading. The second reading. Also the committee stage. Before now, I should think that at this point there should be a recall. There should be a recall of that particular budget, in the sense that if you look at the budget critically, we know that in a contract, wherever there is an offer and there's supposed to be an acceptance, then your constitution comes into play before that becomes a binding document. Now, when there is an offer and there is a counter offer, automatically it invalidates that particular budget.
Yes.
That contract. Now, on a contractual agreement, right now, bringing the budget as a proposed financial sum for a particular year. Now, when we're going to believe again that the budget at this point in time should be, once there is an additional fund that is not under a supplementary budget or a budget deficit, or if you like to use that word, we should be able to say, okay, let's recall this budget and let it go through the first reading, the second reading again, and let's see what we can come out with. Meanwhile, the president can begin to run on a floating budget or something of that magnitude. But so that Nigerians can have an impulse. Nigerians can be able to understand, even if it's to use cartoons, animations to illustrate what you're going to spend. This is the reason why most times we cannot hold ministries, agencies, and government accountable.
And that is why, just sorry to cut, and that is why sometimes we do not see the transparency there at all. And then some people just look back and they wonder, this country is not functioning. There are functions in place, but we do not understand this function and how beneficial it is to you and I. Because we do not understand all these big grammars, these big figures in which you're calling out. And remember, like I mentioned, the masses are the most affected in all of this. The masses. They are the ones. So when you put governments, electorals in place, you are expected to represent us and speak for us and make things easier for us and not difficult. So with all of these budget increments in place, all of these things into place, if you do not, if I don't feel the impact, what is the use really? But hopefully, like I said, in this 2025 proposed increment, let's see how well it plays out. Because this is what we said when it came to electricity tariff. And we said on this program that, okay, there's electricity tariff, as long as I will have lights. And with the grid going off at every minute now, you know how many times it has gone shut down? We are wondering, what is going on? I'm going to debate a bit because it's all encompassed, you understand? So with all this electricity and all of that, and yet I am not getting values worth, it becomes a problem. And yet we're still, and some Nigerians who have decided not to jackpot like the rest, still being hopeful that Nigeria will be great. With all of these increments, giving people another, okay, it would have been better if I jackpot, not even if I don't go to, what is happening now?
Japanese country. Go to a semi-Japanese country.
Exactly, but at the same time, I keep saying, whatever increments, whatever implementation are going to be put in place and all of that, make me understand what the benefits. Because at the same time, with all of these proposed bills and all of that, it still falls, we are going to pay tax. So it affects us as...
But Juma, surprisingly, when I saw the budget, I was wondering, are we afraid of talking about tourism in Nigeria? Or the tourism sector? We have a lot of things to showcase as a people. The tourism sector is a very big sector in Nigeria. Nigeria has a lot of things to... We have waterfalls. We have a Bokum waterfall in Cross River State. If you get to that place, amazing. You get to Fuga, you get to other places in Nigeria. You see amazing places. Even here in Abuja, there is one you get to Fort Papi, Granite, something like that. I can't remember.
But you know what, Godwin, the high rates of insecurity has created a toll that foreigners are even scared. They don't want to come and be kidnapped. Are you kidding me? Do you know the ransom? So when we actually meet that in the board, I think that's what tourism, it's a very beautiful thing. It's going to generate a lot of income. But that, you know, that aspect of insecurity, abduction, kidnapping that we face in Nigeria has created that big void.
But Juma, again, it's not every part of the country that is being ravaged with.
But the truth is, kidnappers are everywhere. Are you kidding me?
What I'm saying is, if the country is serious with the tourism conversation, then we should be able to beef up security around tourist destinations. So let's say, for example, sometime last year I was at Obudukato Ranch, and from the gates of Obudukato Ranch, let's say you're coming in from Obanliko, you're entering into Obudukato Ranch. From the gate of Obudukato Ranch, you see a lot of security presence. You double through to the Devil's Elbow, which is it's called the Devil's Elbow.
Okay.
The Devil's Elbow is this narrow path that takes you to the top of the mountain, to the cliff.
Okay.
When I was traveling, I was going on that cliff. I knew that something was wrong somewhere.
Really was it?
My body actually left my spirit left my body. I was left on my own, and the driver was just on high speed. I was like, okay, it's fine. When we got to the top of the mountain again, we got to the top of the ranch, we still saw a lot of security presence, a lot of division, a lot of division of police headquarters around there. We saw joint task force, security operatives everywhere. And this shows you that if you go into Obudukato Ranch, I'm not trying to market for the Cross River State government,
please don't.
But when you get to that place, there is top-notch security. Now, if this can be replicated on all major tourist destinations, from the roads, coming in every 5 meters and drive, you get to meet security presence. Into the tourist destination, there's a lot of security presence. Even if it means to engage voluntary uniform organizations to serve man-o-wars and what have you, Boy Scout, Boys Brigade, you have a lot of this voluntary uniform organization. Engage them, let them be a tourist destination so that they'll be able to be on the same page with the government. Now, by so doing, we are creating a system where we're generating funds, we are promoting voluntary organization, and at the same time, we are also telling foreigners that want to come into the country that, hey, you can come into the country. We have a beefed up security architecture that can cater for your needs. But when people come into, one of the things I've seen also in tourist destination in Nigeria, I think if the federal government comes in, they'll be able to sort that out, is some lackadaisical attitude of staff at tourist destination. They pleases. So let's have tourist conversation. Instead of we going to Dubai, we can have some Dubai in somewhere in Edo State. We can have Dubai in Ondo State.
Lagos State.
Let's say Lagos is too busy. Let's just take it out of Lagos and bring it to other parts. I don't like people in Lagos right now will not be smiling with me. Okay, let's bring it back to Lagos.
Alright, now, of course, that'll be another conversation for another day. But let's quickly go on a very quick break and the conversation continues. Remember, it's Global Morning on Global Television. Stay tuned.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Welcome back. Just in case you just joining us, this is still Global Morning here on Global Television. And before we went on that break, we were talking about the increment in the budget proposal is submitted to the Nigerian Senate by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We're trying to look at it from other angle. If we could look at it from the part of more revenue generation, especially from the tourism sector, and I was trying to say then that we can get things right even on that sector. Looking at other sectors also in the country, we're calling for increments in budget. I think that we should also have the conversations around getting to boost all the sector. For example, if we can begin to place targets on each sector of the economy. And I also mentioned that if the budget can also be a national orientation agency can do a lot more by giving us animated copies of the budgets, so that we'll be able to hold each ministry, agencies and department of government accountable. For example, if we have that of Ministry of Health, it proposed 15 trillion. So let's say assumed proposed 15 million naira to the Ministry of Health, assumed 10 million naira for the Ministry of Defense, let's assume these figures for these ministries, and these all figures are being documented and presented in an animated format. It will help the average person out there to be able to understand what the budgets are meant for, the breakdown of the budget, what are the recurrent expenditure, what are the current expenditure, what are the deficits that we'll be looking out for, how much are we floating at the moment, or how much are we carrying over from the previous budget. It will also help us to help make informed decision with what the government is trying to do and what they've been able to achieve so far with the various budget has been put in place. Now I know Budget, which is an organization that is in charge of monitoring budget and doing quite a number of lot of stuff in this regard, but I think that the National Orientation Agency still have a lot of work to do in this regard. So let's begin to teach the younger generations, especially the children and teenagers, what it means to be able to effectively and efficiently deliver on budget. And I think this is a call also to NIOT, which is the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, to begin to look for ways that they can begin to inculcate this knowledge and drive home budgetary policies, even from the National Assembly. Let's take this conversation back to the grassroots. So if we're coming up with policies like for bylaws in local government, we don't need to go make it very, very porous. We can make it a bit convenient for everybody to be able to relate to it. When it comes to budget, an average person will know, okay, this is what they are saying and this is what they're going to do. So by the time the year ends and we don't see AYZ, we can hold certain departments of government responsible for not delivering on their mandate. Now also, even the president is saying that we're going to reduce some individuals off their duty post. Nigerians can't justify it and say yes, it's because of AYZ. You promised you're going to do this, you're going to do that. At the end of the day, we didn't see you do any of this. So it won't be on speculations. At least Nigerians begin to travel back and bank on their ethnic sentiment and say, hey, because this person is not from your region, that is not from your tribe, that's why you treating this person unfairly and you're witch hunting this person politically. But if we see that these blueprints are being explained, we'll be able to be on the same page and be able to analyze, have this conversation on a larger scale, knowing fully whether we have a background to this particular conversation and the narratives will be put right. But Juma, I know you have something to say about the budget before we move on to something else.
Yeah, well, I mentioned before, I said for me, the budget mostly affects the masses. I've always said that we should try and make it as simple as possible for anyone to understand. First of all, give us that, there should be that, let's all sit down, let me explain to you what this would bring. What would, like people will say, what are you bringing to the table? What it will bring to the table? How beneficial it is to you and I, the masses. Those people who are elites, they already understand, okay, the 2005 budget, it's a must, it must be put in place. But make the masses understand why it's put in place, and with all of these increments that are coming up, how beneficial is it? You know, I'll keep saying it. It's not just in paper or in numbers, what you call. I want to feel the impact. I am a Nigerian. When I go to the marketplace, let me feel the impact. As little as basic necessities. When it comes to electricity, let me feel the impact. When it comes to all of these things surrounding me, let me feel the impact. I want to understand. That's when I'll be able to understand. And that's where some individuals will understand. Once they feel the impact, then you're like, okay, fine. And you know that you always relate it. The reason why you're getting this is beneficial to you, your family, and your daily source of livelihood is connected. It has a connection with the budget or this particular increment in which we saw that we're trying to pass for you to understand. Make it as simple as possible. It is my right to know as a Nigerian why I pay tax. Are you kidding me? And I say, what is tax? When you go out and buy something, you see that it's always there.
You are the tax.
That VAT, you know you are paying tax now. Whether you know you don't, you are paying tax. Whether you understand or you don't, you're paying tax. So if you can do that to me, I do not know or I know, then explain to me what this is all about and how beneficial it's going to be to me and my income and everything that encompasses as a Nigerian.
Well, we'll go for this short break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Professor Kuta Yahya Mohammed, who is the Secretary, Presidential Committee on Livestock. He'll be joining us in the conversation and talking about the impact of the Livestock Commission. Go nowhere as Global Morning continues in a moment. Welcome back, and just in case you're just joining us, this is still Global Morning, and I'm being joined right now by Professor Kuta Yahya Mohammed, and he is the Secretary of the Presidential Committee on Livestock. A welcome to Global Television.
Livestock reforms, yes, thank you.
All right, so tell us about the livestock reforms so far. We heard about the livestock reforms, and all of a sudden right now we're not hearing much about it. How well have we been able to implement some of what has been proposed, even the livestock reforms?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, and good morning, Nigerians, and the world global view of this program. The Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee was inaugurated by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the 9th of July 2024, with himself as the chairman and appointing Professor Atairu Jega as the co-chairman, and my humble self as the secretary, with other 23 members drawn from across academia, practicing livestock farmers, social scientists, and a host of other professionals who have valuable experience in the livestock value chain. It's gratifying to tell you that the committee has so far so good, based on the 16 terms of reference directed by Mr. President. We have been able to generate 120 reform activities, and already we have 22 objectives derived from the terms of reference, and one of the major component of the activities is the establishment of Ministry of Livestock Development, and the ministry has been established by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the day of the inauguration, and it's very gratifying to let you know that the ministry has taken off, because a substantive minister, Mukhtar Maya, has been appointed, and the permanent secretary has also been deployed, and other key officials are already taking their position in the ministry. Also, I'm very glad to tell you that the committee was able to secure strategic building for the ministry at the Central Business District of Abuja, very close to the Bank of Industry, your neighbor, very close around here, on the strategic location of Abuja. And the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Barrister Wilson Wike, has been directed by Mr. President to rehabilitate and furnish the building for the ministry takeoff. It is enough for the takeoff of the ministry. So we're looking forward to that. Also, based on the activities, sensitization and mobilization of the committee, we had a stakeholder consultative forum exactly on the October 24th and 25th. Professionals, practitioners, and all those affected by the livestock industry were keen across the value chain. Is it for poultry? Is it for piggery? Is it for swine, or is it for cattle? Every aspect of livestock they were all in Abuja at the Presidential Villa. That workshop was declared open by Mr. President on the 24th of October, and he made some landmark statement that he is ready to partner with the committee, the ministry, and to really unlock the potentials of the sector for the world. And we are gratified to be part of that conversation. Many people were happy to see Mr. President taking the bull by the horn. At the end of that conversation, we came up with a communique and proceedings that really generated a lot of guidance for the stakeholders in the industry, and that has led to other consultations with many states. So far, we have visited Bauchi State, Plateau State, and Borno State, Osun State, and Niger State, and on their invitation to come and shed more light on what the committee and the reforms are all about. I'm pleased to inform you that Bauchi State has already established and appointed a commissioner for the Ministry of Livestock and Fishery Development. Plateau State just recently appointed and established the Ministry of Livestock, Veterinary Health and Fishery Development, and appointed a commissioner designate. Niger State already had a Ministry of Livestock Development of over a decade,
which you served under the government.
Yes, I was part of those who midwife establishment of that ministry by the Babangida Aliyu administration, where I was secretary to the government. Also, the current governor, the former governor, had already established a Ministry of Pastoral and Nomadic Affairs to look at the interests of those people who are affected by the challenges in the industry. Also, I'm just happy to also inform you that Kogi State has established Ministry of Livestock Development just recently too, and already Borno State has established Ministry of Livestock Development, and even an agency, Borno Livestock Management Agency. So you can imagine already were expected to also, Jigawa State has also established not only a reform committee, but a mirror of what the National Livestock Committee reform is, because they say they call their Jigawa Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee. So just a pattern after Mr. President's design. So already we're expecting invitation. Sokoto has invited us to come out also shed light. Then really they had the Ministry of Animal Husbandry, but they are already consulting us to also expand the frontiers beyond animal husbandry, because animal health is a component of livestock development. So it's holistic. Now we are also expected, in the coming days to also be in Jigawa State to shed more light and engage the stakeholders. So on the whole, the sensitization is real. Excuse me. And then in the process, Mr. President confessed and acknowledged the committee that you have opened up to us what many people do not know about the livestock sector, because we were able to engage, we were able to submit an exceptional report on 19 September to Mr. President, and further to that, he had already supported with so many things that are coming up. In November 17th to 20th, Mr. President is extended the invitation to the co-chairman, Professor Tario Jega, and myself to join other teams at the G20 in Brazil. At that G20, we were able to meet with Brazilian investors. It was exciting that the biggest industrial livestock meat producer in the world, JBS, were at their factory. And they promised Mr. President, they signed a memorandum of intent. Letter of intent was given by the Minister of Livestock, who signed on behalf of the federal government, to come to Nigeria to invest $2.5 billion. $2.5 billion in the livestock sector in Nigeria. They sent a team in December to have a recce, kind of assess what is on the ground. And the team that came to Nigeria were blown away by the potentials of Nigeria. So in the coming days, in the coming weeks, in fact, in less than a week, the Brazilians will be in Nigeria again to step up conversation on this, and that will be the highest profile, because Brazil, JBS, is the highest meat exporter in the world, to Americas, to Australia, to China, and all over the world. Their turnover in 2024 was $79 billion.
All right, Prof. Let's even talk about this whole issue again in terms of security. I know the committee have put modalities to address security issues, but then stakeholders say that perhaps these reforms will further accelerate the herders' conflicts in Nigeria. But then, let's hear from you. Will you be able to address some of these concerns raised by stakeholders?
Is it accelerate?
No, that's what stakeholders' position is on this matter.
No, I don't, except
okay, the herder farmers conflict has always been there. So the livestock reform right now is going to further give the herders more edge against the farmers. Is it how is it designed?
No, I think is the other way around.
All right, please go on.
The reform is targeted both at the pastoralists, the producers, small-scale producers, and the engagement so far is to take cognizance of their concerns, which is well established and documented. Part of the challenges they face is there is a population explosion, and there is expanding desire to cultivate more food. So in the traditional setting, there used to be cattle routes, where cattle used to follow across the country. And what do cattle search for? Pasture and water. Those are the primary things that every livestock producer is concerned about. So the issue of transhumance, moving from one point to the other, is in search of feed and what? Water. So in the process of the movement, it's unfortunate that in many states, they have encouraged those routes. And where the cattle has to move, they will have to find another route to pass. And that is why the established farms. Most of those routes are either encroached by urbanization or construction of roads or farms. So hitherto, they used to have a pattern from across Maiduguri down up to Ogoja, from Kano down, all routes were there before, but now being encroached. So what the committee is doing is sensitization to change the narrative, to transist from this transhumance style to a settlement pattern where they can settle and have access to pasture, water, and even amenities, especially as demonstrated by Governor Zulu in Borno State. Governor Zulu has established a typical ranch where 461 houses were constructed and inaugurated recently, just about 4 weeks ago. And in this enclave, you have schools, you have worship centers, you have animal clinics, you have pasture lands. And in the process, the pastoralists are now settled. Instead of wandering, they now have a place where they can stay, and that place can accommodate. He alone bought 1,400 heads of cattle, male and female, for each of the settled family, and goats for them too, so that they can begin to start their life, because they were victims of Boko Haram displacement. So they are now settled, and adjoining the ranch are two major grazing reserves where animals can also go and graze and come back to their abode. So this is an innovation that is commendable. So gradually, he said he is already establishing additional two. Already, they are in each of the 3 senatorial districts of Borno State. That's a good example. So if you replicate this in many places across the states, that will reduce the friction between herders and farmers, because they will be literally settled and they will have a better livelihood to pursue, and that is the essence of solving the problem. So instead of escalation, it will be a de-escalation of conflict between herders and farmers.
All right, Prof. A lot of people have come out to say that the Ministry of Livestock and the Livestock Reform Programs is an advanced mechanism, an advanced structure for the ranching program that was formally introduced by the former president of Nigeria and President Muhammadu Buhari. But how correct is this, Prof?
You know, those who have misconceptions, is their individual opinion or group opinion, but that does not take away from the fact that in this situation, we are looking at the holistic, value chain development of the livestock sector. Both producers, processors, and even those in the transportation of value chain or cold chain system and preservation and storage system are inclusive in this agenda. And then the consumers, instead of carrying a live cow from Maiduguri to Lagos that will spend 1 week, that stress will not only lead to emaciation of the cow, but valuable content of what you expect from the cow will be lost. So in this circumstance, people only think about cattle when you talk about livestock, according to Professor Jega, because there is little knowledge of the opportunities that exist in other animals like swine, poultry, cat, goats and sheep, and other micro animals like grasscutter, rabbits. People are not even talking about that. But these are healthy and prolific in production animals like goats, sheep, and grasscutters, including snails. Those are healthy animal products, but the people are not talking about it. So the moment you talk about livestock, those who are negative about the sector think about only cattle. But the livestock is not all about cattle. We have only about 58% 1.8 million cattle in Nigeria, while we have over 200 million goats and sheep. We have over 500 million poultry, and out of the poultry sector, 21% have been developed into intensive system of management. But cattle, only 1%. So where are you going to wait to modernize and to improve your production system? Are you going to wait indefinitely because people are criticizing you? No. Go to Botswana. Botswana have cattle population of over 200 million. Because where you have population and nutrition supply inadequacy, you see the number of cattle to the population, they are almost equal. But in Nigeria, look at 58 million compared to how many 230 million people. It's inadequate. So therefore, the move towards modernization will take cognizance of the existing cultural and traditional practices. As a station professional, you need what we call to understand the issue of the definition of innovation. And in the definition of innovation, you have innovators who are probably looks like you and me, who usually look at the pros and the cons and adopt right away. You have the people who are early adopters. You have people who are early majority. You have the late majority, and then you have the laggards. The laggards, no matter whatever you tell them, they will never believe you.
Well, Prof, we'll come back to this classroom again, but I'm curious at this point. From time immemorial, we've had quite a number of, we have had Ministry of Agriculture, and now we've seen the livestock reforms, and also some states already having Ministry of Livestock as it were right now. So, is there a difference between, enlighten us on this, is there a difference between the Ministry of Livestock and the Ministry of Agriculture? And if yes, are we going to now inculcate in our educational syllabus in our schools, begin to inculcate the ministry or the subject called livestock departments? And most just enlighten us. That's why we're not in your field, we're on this field.
You know, it's good to educate people.
Yeah.
Agriculture is a profession that is targeted at production and nurturing food for human consumption, including protein that involve animals. So in agriculture, I will tell you today, when you go to a typical faculty of agriculture in any university system, you have more than 12 areas of field of specialization. This does not even include veterinary medicine, which is also a faculty of its own, that is dealing with life and treatment of animals as a whole. In agriculture, you have area dealing with crop as a production or agronomy that includes soil science studies. You have crop protection, entomologists, and all those people that deal with the protection of crops. You have nematologists that deal with nematodes that affect, crops. Then you have agricultural economics that deal with resource management in agriculture, both land, capital, and marketing of agricultural products. Then you have animal scientists who are dealing primarily with production, processing, and nurturing of animals for value and productivity. Then you have agricultural extensionists who are dealing with the translation of knowledge in the entire agricultural space for the end users in the industry, farmers across the entire value chain. Then you have agroforestry dealing with every component of silviculture, fauna and flora in agriculture. Then you are talking about fisheries and aquaculture, both captive and wild fish in oceans and in rivers, and therefore we are not talking about the culture of producing them in ponds and nurturing them as natural animals. So it is the whole gamut of areas that you cannot count less than 12 that you make as agriculture. But many people, because of necessity of producing what? Feeding the stomach. Once you talk about agriculture, what comes to mind easily is the food you ingest, and that is all. How the food comes to the table is not their worry. But a lot of activities have to happen before you have healthy food on your table. And not only healthy food, it has to be nutritious. So we're talking about food security and what? Nutrition security. Because if you have food, it must be the right quantity with right proportion of nutrients that will make it healthy for human consumption, for survival. And I think people need to be educated about that. So when you are talking about Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture in Nigerian climate has so marginalized the livestock sector over the years, because since 1900, when agricultural activities started, and in 1876 when more plantation was established in Ibadan, the primary focus has been on crops. They have never talk about livestock. And today you see Cocoa Research Institute in Ibadan has different flavors of cocoa, and they are rated as the best in the world. But Nigeria exports raw materials to other parts of the world, and a country that does not have one tree plant of cocoa produces the best chocolate for the whole world, and you know the country. So therefore it is our time to shift, not only to focus on production of agricultural products, but also look at livestock. Nigeria imports about $1.5 billion worth of livestock products, milk and others, quarterly. And we have the capacity. The countries we are importing these things from don't have our potentials in terms of land mass, in terms of agro-ecological compatibility for the production of animals. Some countries create artificial circumstances for the production of the animal system. Look at a country in Europe, for example. There are only 6 months of active production. The remaining 6 months is weather inclement. So therefore, you see them producing pasture in soilless environment, because the weather does not permit the production when there is.
Prof, let me interrupt you here at this point. There is this question that comes to mind, and it is the question around looking at the timing for the Ministry of Livestock. A lot of people say that the timing was not right, because to a large extent Nigerians are suffering from high level of inflation. Nigerians are also being confronted with a lot of tariff hikes, if you like to use that word. Now, the timing, will you say that the president's timing for the implementation of the Ministry of Livestock is in tandem?
When you talk about economic diversification, what are you talking about? You are talking about opening the space beyond traditional modes of generating revenue. And the biggest gold mine that we have, after what we saw in Brazil, from JBS that slaughter 1,200 heads of cattle a day in one of the factories in Leeds. We went to Obalandia to see what BRF is doing in chicken. They slaughter 290,000 chicken every day. And look at the massive employment going on in those industries. Those who are handling different aspects are there in a mechanized setting. They have outgrowers about 50-kilometer radius to the factory. People are producing chicken every 42 days and delivering to the factory. They'll give you the chicken, they'll give you the feed. Just go and produce and bring. And it generates a lot of economic activities around those areas. When we visit some of those sites, you look at them as villages, farm villages, but they have airstrip, they have every amenity you have in every city in any clime. So these are the kind of places
they have said inflation is not above.
You look, even if you are not productive and you are perpetual importer, what's going to happen to your life? You cannot help it. So what Mr. President is doing is trying to engineer production so that we can produce more and stop perpetual dependence on importation. If you continue to import, your inflation will continue to haunt you. And therefore this is a deliberate attempt to stop and halt our perpetual dependence on foreign tests and foreign goods. Brazil and all of us who are at the same level of development in years past. But go to Brazil today, they are moving on. And you think we should continue to procrastinate? No, Mr. President, thank you for what you have done.
I don't think at this point that the president should have hold on, probably stabilize the economy before even trying.
How do you stabilize the economy without economic activities?
There are other ways you would have looked at this whole thing. I don't know, but look at all of this.
No, I think you are not fair. Because if you are fair, you know that the world will not wait for you. Today, Nigeria is going to be part of BRICS. And what do you bring to the table in BRICS? Are you going to be importing from BRICS? You have to have an export. You have to produce to stabilize your currency. If without productivity, you cannot make it. I thought you were talking about improving power supply that will encourage mass production.
We will come to that point.
No, that's the solution is like
to livestock. Some of those things that we will come back to this point that some of the challenges that we have if actually Nigeria can even meet up with what you've proposed, because going by the reforms that we see is very lofty. And I was coming to that point that are we ripe for some of the policies and the reforms initiative that you and your team, your committee have presented?
Look, let me tell you, you can generate using biogas from the waste from animals to generate your energy. We saw it in JBS, zero waste, zero. Every product of the animal is used for one thing or the other. So you generate energy to stabilize in your industry. We are perpetually depending on one source of energy. We have the renewable energy options that we could engineer and escalate our access to energy and power that will power our industries. And this is what exactly the opportunity that this offers us. I'm very happy that many states are moving on. We just came out from Niger State and we saw the wonder the farmer government is doing. We were all blown away. It has moved on in terms of, establishing feedlots, establishing, animal sector where they are producing already, and construction of modern facilities, including pasture land.
So, Prof, before I will let go this morning, lastly, if we want to assess the whole reform programs and we want to implement it at state level, what will the same our GDP look like in the next 2 years? Because this is what most state governors want to hear from you, that they've not even seen the blueprint, they've not even seen the reform policy, they've not seen some of the documentation, but they want to hear from you at this point. If we say, Prof, come with your team and give us an analysis on this particular project and the reforms policy, what will be the outcome in the next 2 years for states?
As I can tell you confidently, the committee is already generating data on the potentials of all the 36 states of Nigeria, on livestock, on transportation, and on the opportunities they have based on their own independent comparative advantages. Already a state like Jigawa is already sitting on a gold mine in terms of irrigation facilities that are already established. Jigawa and Kano State, they are already leveraging on those irrigation facilities to produce throughout the year. So if you now add the menu of pasture into their production cycle, you can plant some of this pasture that you harvest 5 times in a year. If the irrigation just continue to water, all you need to continue to harvest. I have a site in Tubakao, in the irrigation site in Ushishi, in Niger State. They have an irrigation facilities. Farmers in that community cultivate rice 3 times in a year. 3 times in a year. The first one is for well-fed. The second one, by the time they are harvesting and packing and doing, it will sprout again on its own because there's water. And they will harvest that one. The dry season, they will clear the land, cultivate again, and apply water and harvest rice 3 times. The socio-economic sector of that community is manifest. There was a day there was 40 marriages. They celebrated on TV, watch it live. There were no youth in that community that is not driving a car. So these are the kind of economic prosperity that Mr. President envisaged, that he wants to escalate the livestock sector as a major contributor to agricultural GDP. As at now, the contribution of livestock to agricultural GDP is abysmal because it has not been paid attention over the years. But now, with this deliberate manifestation and outcomes of Mr. President's intervention, we are seeing it as a game changer, and that will add more to the agricultural GDP. And as you are aware, the highest contributor to Nigerian GDP as at now is agriculture, not even oil. So the gold mine of Nigeria and the oil of Nigeria in the near future is livestock. We have seen it in Brazil. It's not a fiction, and the Brazilians are coming to Nigeria full time. So Nigerians, welcome to the new dawn in terms of livestock. That is a game changer. Do not be deceived by those who want to hoodwink you to think that it's all about an agenda of some sort. Is zero. Is economic prosperity, conflict mitigation, and indeed changing the narrative of perpetual dependence or importation of goods from outside the country. I'm pleased to inform you that I'm going to give the next university lecture at the University of Ibadan. And the title of my not inaugural lecture, I've done inaugural lecture 6 years earlier, but I'm giving the 45th university lecture. And the title is Decolonization of Food Security, Multi-Dimensional Pathways to Poverty Mitigation.
Prof, we would like to be there when you give it that particular lectures.
You're welcome in March. March 6, March 13, and March 18. 2 weeks.
Don't forget the other irrigation also we want to, because if a community like you've mentioned, they're all driving cars, I think that community is worth seeing also.
No, I will invite you to go there one day to that cow community in Ushishi local government.
No problem, Prof.
You will be blown away.
We want to be blown away, Prof. We want to say thank you so much for being a part of the show this morning.
Thank you.
What viewers, this is how far we can go this morning, even with Professor Kunta Yahya Muhammad. We'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we will still talk more on Global Morning. Please go nowhere, the show continues in a moment. Wow, welcome back. Interesting conversation with Professor Muhammad. Do you think so?
Very interesting conversation. You know, both conversations back to back, always hits home to all individuals. Of course, like I said, it's the masses, and we're talking about the masses and every other thing encompassing how to better Nigeria. And at the same point, hope everyone was well informed when it comes to that interesting conversation. And with that, we'll be wrapping up the program on Global Morning. This beautiful TGIF. Thank you this Friday. Thank you all for being a part of the program. And at this point, we'll have to say bye-bye. I am Juma Mansin, and my Friday co-host, another person, Dan
Godwin Sunday.
Have an amazing day ahead. And from both of us, we say bye-bye.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring it